Hello and welcome to Game of Box Office. Today we will make a prediction on the likely performance of Finding Dory. Let's start right away. It will be a hard battle for the box office crown this year, but Finding Dory is definitely a contender. We already predicted the possible outcome of Batman vs Superman, Civil War, Rogue One and Independence Day Resurgence, who all have a shot to be number one at the end of this year. We have to admit that since the new Civil War trailer is out, which features, spoiler, Spider-Man, the chances for Civil War has gone up pretty high. But Finding Dory is definitely not out of the race. To make a possible prediction on Finding Dory, let's take a look at the predecessor Finding Nemo. Back in 2003, when Finding Nemo was released, it was a box office monster. It grossed $339.7 million in the USA and Canada and also $555.9 million overseas, for a combined total of $895.6 million worldwide. With those numbers, it was the second highest grossing movie worldwide, overseas and in the domestic market in 2003, just behind The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King in all of those markets. It was also the highest grossing animated movie of all time with those numbers, and was overtaken by Shrek 2 1 year later, and 7 years later overtaken by Toy Story 3 for highest grossing animated movie from Pixar. So, as you can see, the movie was pretty much the benchmark for animated movies for quite some time. Besides that, the movie was immensely well received by audiences and critics loved it. When you adjust the ticket prices for inflation, Finding Nemo would have grossed $494 million in its original run, just in the domestic market. Finding Dory has the advantage of a hugely grown overseas market and higher ticket prices, as well as 3D, so all of these factors should play well for Finding Dory. Besides that, not only kids will go and watch Finding Dory, it's also very possible that older people will return to Finding Dory when the quality is right, because then the nostalgia factor will come into play. Let's start off with our pessimistic prediction. In our opinion, even when the movie sucks, what is really unlikely to happen, an opening weekend close to $100 million is pretty safe, something like a $95 million opening. From there on, it is really unlikely that even in the most pessimistic situation, the movie will go under a multiplier of 2.5. So, $237.5 million in total in the domestic market is the lowest point for Finding Dory. In the overseas market, we really can't see a final outcome which is way under $500 million. We think $485 million is the lowest for Finding Dory. All in all, that would make up for a $722.5 million total at the end. Seriously, for that to happen, everything must go totally wrong with the movie. There is maybe a 0.1% chance that this scenario will become reality, so don't panic, it's really unlikely. In the realistic scenario, the numbers would go up high. When the reviews and reactions from audiences are quite good, we think that the animated opening weekend record could already be in play for Finding Dory. Right now, the opening weekend record for an animated movie is with Minions from last year, which grossed $115.7 million over its first 3 days. The Pixar opening weekend record is with Toy Story 3, which grossed $110.3 million back in 2010. It's a lock in our opinion that Finding Dory will break the Pixar record in this scenario. The overall opening record for an animated movie is very likely, but not 100% given. So we say Finding Dory will open to something between $115 to $120 million over its first 3 days, and with a final multiplier of around 3, will reach a domestic total of $345 to $360 million in the domestic market. Additional to that, we think that Finding Dory will gross around $680 million in overseas markets for a worldwide total of $1.025 billion to $1.04 billion worldwide. With those numbers, it would already be the 4th highest grossing animated movie of all time worldwide, and probably the 6th to 10th highest grossing animated movie in the domestic market of all time. Now, the big question: what is the absolute maximum that Finding Dory will be able to gross? When the quality of Finding Dory is equal or even better than the quality of Finding Nemo, the numbers are getting so high that we think Finding Dory has a shot at the box office crown, and to be honest, there are a lot of signs who work in favor for that scenario. Finding Nemo is a grown, unique mark. It sold tons of merchandise over the last decade and became the most bought home movie DVD of all time. In this situation, it has a shot to become a free demographic movie. That means kids want to watch the movie. Because of that, the parents have to go with them, and also teens and young adults who loved Finding Nemo back in 2003 and their childhood will also go into the cinema. Of course, there are a lot of audience catchers right after Finding Dory. Independence Day Resurgence and Ice Age, for example. But they will not affect the movie in this situation. In the realistic and pessimistic scenario, maybe. But not in that situation right here. In this scenario, we see an opening weekend of about $140 million, and with a multiplier similar to the one of The Dark Knight, roughly 3.3, a domestic total of $462 million. In addition, Finding Dory would conquer the world with an overseas total of around $890 million. For that to happen, it needs to have a breakthrough performance in at least one country like UK, Japan, China, Germany or France. All of this would sum up for a worldwide total of $1.352 billion worldwide. With that, Finding Dory would break the domestic all-time record from an animated movie currently held by Shrek 2, and it would also break the overseas record and the worldwide record for an animated movie currently held by Frozen, which we analyzed 3 days ago. Finding Dory would be the record holder in every aspect when it comes to animated movies. Also, when you compare the optimistic outcome of every box office crown contender of 2016 with Finding Dory, you can see that it comes in right on second place, just behind Star Wars Rogue One. As we mentioned in the beginning of this video, we really have to release new numbers on Civil War. So Finding Dory right now would go 1 place down to the 3rd place, and Civil War would overtake Rogue One for the top spot. But we have to wait for what the future brings. Finding Dory is definitely a contender and a big opponent for all other movies, that's for sure. Our next video will be an analysis on Maleficent, X-Men Days of Future Past, or a prediction about X-Men Apocalypse. Just tell us what you want to see most and we will do that video first. We hope you enjoyed this prediction. Be sure to hit a like and subscribe to our channel. You can also support us on the social networks listed below if you want to. See you soon. Bye bye.